think we can officially start the program. I'll call upon Bwana Juba at this juncture to lead us in the national anthem, and after that we can have the prayers from our cadets. Thank you very much for that moment. I'll call upon Cadet Said Mohammed to lead us in a word of prayer, followed by Cadet Victoria Neema.
Good afternoon. We'll have a word of prayer. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا آتق رقابنا من النار. ربنا آتق رقابنا من النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
Let us believe and pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before now this moment. We commission this event into your able hands. As we are going to start this event, we usher you in, God. May you be with us, be our guide. May whatever we discussed and whatever we plan, God, let bring a breakthrough in it, Almighty Father. And it is in Jesus' name we pray, trust Him and believing. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, cadets. The people seated on my right-hand side, I humbly ask you to move. Make sure there is no empty seat in front of you. Kindly make sure there is no empty seat in front of you. Naomba tafadhali kwa taadhima na heshima kubwa tuje mbele. Hakikisha mbele yako hakuna kiti kilicho wazi. Hivi viko wazi. My deans, Dean Nato, I can see you. Registrar na kuona kiti kiko wazi. Tafadhali songeni mbele. There's an empty seat, the 3 extra seats on the front. Ladies and gentlemen, please move forward. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. At this juncture, I want to call upon 2 of our sponsors who have supported us as a university in making this 5th Multidisciplinary Conference and Innovation Week a success. I want to recognize National Bank, Mr. David Bwire. Kindly, if you can come and say hello and give a few remarks.
Thank you. Madam VC, DVC, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I forgot to say all protocols observed. My name is David Bwire. I'm here on behalf of National Bank of Kenya. As it has been mentioned, we are part and parcel of this very exciting moment that has enabled so much that has been happening in this particular institution. So we are here because we appreciate that innovation and technology is the best way forward in terms of finding solutions to a variety of the problems that face us as a community and also as an ecosystem. So basically, for us, it's not about selling, it's about appreciating the kind of work that has been put in this particular initiative. And we are also glad to note that there are a few aspects that also the bank appreciates and supports in terms of ensuring that, especially in terms of entrepreneurship, and also in the blue economy aspect of it. For those who might not be aware, is that the bank supports a program that we call WASH program, which enables, or we are able to support anybody who deals with anything to do with water. I know blue economy is on the lower end, but also on the upfront. Anything to do with purification, conservation, waste disposal, the bank really comes in to support. So feel free to talk to us. We also have other initiatives in line with the entrepreneurship, where we support businesses up to a tune of 100 million unsecured. So for those who have very good ideas, you are in supply chain management, and especially for the ladies and those people living with disability, the bank has a weakness. We are ready to support you to be able to enhance and provide solutions to your customers. And this one we say unsecured because we understand the challenges that face the categories that I've mentioned. So if you have any issue, feel free to talk to us. And I said unsecured, up to 100 million. Beyond there, we will start talking about security, but feel free. We have also a very nice product for the ladies. We call NIA program, where we are able to support them, not just to do their businesses, but also to empower them with the skills and knowledge to be able to move forward. So it's a program that we really encourage most of our ladies to be able to join, so that we can also connect you with other ladies, not just in Kenya, but also on the continent. For TUM, we are tenants, and we appreciate the relationship that we have with the community here. So we are privileged to have been here and participated in this particular event. Thank you so much, and have a blessed afternoon ahead.
Thank you very much. That's National Bank. Like we said, they are our next door neighbor. They're just at the front. I also want to call upon Madam Nancy Kariuki from Absa Bank. Madam Nancy Kariuki from Absa Bank. Is she here? Nancy Kariuki from Absa Bank? Sawa, atakuja baadaye. Thank you very much. So at this juncture, I'll invite the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Research and Extension, Professor Peter Gishangi, to give his opening remarks.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you, MC. Madam Vice Chancellor, Technical University of Mombasa, Captain Suleiman, colleagues, engineers from KPA, KMA, distinguished colleagues, all protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon once again. As we said 2 days ago, we continue to be excited as the academic division for the things which have been happening this week. And this is culmination of a dream. I think all of us can see the theme of the conference, from ideas to impact. And I think this is a particularly important session for us because some of our dreams about marine and maritime education and studies are getting to be realized very soon. And so this becomes an extremely important occasion for us to be able to share ideas, to see what we are planning to do, what is on the ground, and what we need to be able to do in future to be able to actualize these dreams. The academic division, for those of us who are coming here for the first time, we have several schools and institutes. We have the School of Engineering, which is our niche area for the university. We have School of Business. We have School of Humanities and Social Sciences. We have School of Pure and Applied Sciences. We have Institute of Computing and Informatics, which is a teaching institute. We have the Institute of TVET. We have School of Graduate Studies. And we'll be having another institute. Our Vice Chancellor will talk about it in the very near future. But over and above that backdrop, there will be a School of Medicine as well. So there are many dreams, and as a university, we continue to dream because we know if you do not dream, nothing will come through. They may be ambitious, but you have to be equally ambitious. So today, this afternoon, we'll be very privileged to have people in the maritime sector who are going to talk to us and be able to guide us through this process of dreaming from what we have to the things we want to have in the future. So it gives me gratitude to note that we have the best of the best in this area, and we continue to appreciate the partnership with these colleagues, particularly in helping the university. And I must singularly, from the division, acknowledge the teams, particularly Captain here, who has been in the forefront of supporting the university where we have been short of capacity. I do know this is a very specialized area, but they have stepped up and they have been able to help us. So we continue to appreciate that contribution, and we know there are other areas we are working on, the curriculum and many other areas. So I'll leave it there and say, as an academic division, we are very, very happy. As a university, we are equally happy because these ideas, when we have much more programs, they not only help the individuals in that program, but you also get to cross-pollinate ideas. And for me, that is extremely important. When you know these colleagues who have these attires and so forth, you had the commands coming from there. Some of us were lucky that we had a bit of experience of this kind of thing. But you also get to see why are those people different from these others. So that becomes important because then you are able to exchange ideas. With this, I would like to invite Captain Suleiman, who is not only a captain, but the president. And again, I must appreciate the liberalization of the space in this country. There's a time there was only one president, but now we can have many presidents. So President Suleiman Bakari. Yeah, so thank you. I've made some correction of course here. And so Captain Bakari will be representing the other team, and so we'll skip him. And we come to our Vice Chancellor, Madam VC I was very moved this morning when somebody said, I want to be like you. And now I have no chance to be like you, but there are many others in this room who may want to be like you. And on this note, I invite you to speak to us.
Thank you, DBC. Our chief guest who's here today, and also representing Captain Abdile, I hope, who is also, as you've heard, we seem to be having another president in the house here, and he is the president of the Association of Maritime Practitioners of Kenya. That is none other but Captain Suleiman Bakari, but he also wears another hat. He's also a senior lecturer at Technical University of Mombasa, and he also teaches and trains our students here. We also have with us members who will be members of the panel, but they are members also of the Association of Maritime Practitioners of Kenya. Karibuni, I know mnavaa hat mbili leo, mna represent Kenya Maritime Authority, but nimeambiwa leo umekuja as part of the Association of Maritime Practitioners of Kenya. Our distinguished guests from our sister universities who are here today, we have Masinde Muliro, which is represented. I think, yes, habari zenu, yes. We also have representation. Yesterday you heard from Moi University. Our Koske, Professor Koske was also here. We have other representation from other sister universities and other stakeholders who are with us. Not forgetting our TUM fraternity who are all here, all our deans, our chairs of departments, and our staff who are lecturers, senior lecturers who are with us today, and not forgetting our cadets. The rains have messed us up. You are supposed to be out there when our chief guest comes, but it's because of the rains. So all of you, good afternoon. Mine is just again to really appreciate your presence and again thank the Association of Maritime Practitioners of Kenya for accepting to grace this afternoon session. This is going to be a very, very exciting session, and as you know, this is the session for the blue economy and maritime affairs. So this is the theme of the afternoon session. You know, during the opening ceremony, we had our Chief Secretary, our Cabinet Secretary for Blue Economy and Maritime Mining. He said he's multidisciplinary, and he was here with us to officially open our conference. Honorable Mvurya was here with us, and one of the things he talked about was the issues of blue economy and maritime affairs. For those of you who attended the opening session, it was very, very interesting, the efforts that the government are taking, and the fact that now the government is really focused on maritime affairs under the Kenya Kwanza, to actually bring the economy or step up our economy. So the government is currently taking a keen interest in the maritime affairs and the blue economy. So what we need to do is also to take up this opportunity and work hand in hand with the government, solve the problems in the blue economy, both in the issues of having enough practitioners and also the research and innovation that goes with it. I'm not here to say many words, but mine is just to appreciate your presence and our presence here today. We are very excited with this multidisciplinary conference, and I think also for those of you who are yesterday's in the evening when we were having yesterday's meeting, we again talked about the importance of research and innovation. I don't want to take a lot of time because the panelists are waiting, and in the interest of time, I just want again to take this opportunity to welcome our guest. I think that's my next assignment is to welcome our guest, Captain Suleiman Bakari. Karibu. And as I said, you are a veteran at Technical University of Mombasa. You feel at home, and you are really at home. Karibu, Captain Suleiman.
Professor Laila Abubakar, the Vice Chancellor, Technical University of Mombasa, DVCs, Deans, Directors, Heads of Department, distinguished guests, and most important, cadets, university staff, all protocol observed. Good afternoon. Professor, allow me to convey the apologies of the Harbour Master, Kenya Ports Authority, Captain Ali Abdille, who was looking forward to attending this session this afternoon, but unfortunately we had lost one of the pilots, Captain Isaac Tulula, and him and myself had to attend the funeral service. We were delayed a little bit longer. I'm very privileged to be here this afternoon and to deliver a speech on behalf of the Association of Maritime Practitioners, whose members and distinguished senior members, vice presidents are here this afternoon, forming part of the panelists for this session. The dedication of a special Blue Economy and Maritime plenary session in this 5th multidisciplinary conference has once again demonstrated the commitment of the Technical University of Mombasa in taking its rightful position as a national and regional leader in the provision of maritime education and training. This renewed focus could not have come at a better time, as Kenya's Blue Economy and Maritime sector is emerging from a period of temporary slumber. Kenya's blue economy and maritime ambitions are well captured in robust policies and programs within the Vision 2030 development policy and other instruments, including the Presidential Directive of 17th December 2021, which set a national goal to produce 4,000 seafarers annually. Section 482 of the medium-term plan, commonly known as MTP3, the previous one, of the Kenya Vision 2030, had identified inability to deliver STCW convention compliant training as a challenge to development of the Kenyan blue economy. Clearly, it will be appreciated that TUM, as a leading maritime education and training institution, has its work well cut out. You will forgive me in my speech this afternoon that I will naturally be biased slightly, and I will try to avoid it as much as I can, but there will be a slight bias towards seafarer training. I understand we are addressing the blue economy at large. So under section 6524 of the current MTP4, titled Livelihood and Job Creation, Vision 2030 recognizes that maritime transport and allied careers have the potential of increasing the GDP growth through foreign exchange remittances. This highlights a very important strategic consideration, which is, while maritime education and training institutions seek to produce the human resource necessary to power our own national maritime sector, Kenya has its eyes trained on the vast opportunities available in the global market for much of the human resource produced in this country. So it is important then to look at the global market, because that's where our policies are oriented towards addressing. This is the target, in as much as we want to power or drive our own maritime sector in this country. So the global market then projects that, and these are projections done by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, the International Labour Organization, the International Transport Workers Federation, ITF, the International Chamber of Shipping, ICS, among other leading international organizations. So projections done by these organizations collectively point to a significant shortage of seafarers by the end of the decade and going forward. Indeed, both individual international shipping companies and joint ship owners associations, such as the German Ship Owners Association, which we are happy to have engaged with, have even sponsored some of us to attend quite intensive discussions on these matters in Hamburg in Germany. So shipping companies, individual and ship owners associations around the world are already scouting for alternative sources of seafarers beyond the traditional maritime labor markets of Asia, the Philippines, India, Burma, and the rest, and Eastern Europe, the Polish, the Ukrainian, the Bulgarian, and the rest. MARITIME has held various meetings with some of these major maritime employers who have visited Kenya on fact-finding missions. And I am happy to inform the plenary here this afternoon that several major shipping companies are presently establishing what they are calling the African Crewing Division. That is good news for you as the future seafarers. We may then very well be witnessing the dawn of the African seafarer as a key player at the global stage. So the world is looking at us, the world is looking at Africa as the alternative source of maritime labor, the future maritime labor, and this is important. Recently, MARITIME hosted a company, among others, who have come here previously on fact-finding mission, trying to look at our database. Do we have the numbers? What is the quality? And so on and so forth. So this is good news. It's good news. These companies are looking at our product, the Kenyan trained seafarer, officers, cadets, and the non-officers whom we may talk about in the course of this speech, the ratings. So the question then is, are we ready to meet the expectations of the world? Are we a credible source then of the demanded maritime labor out there in the global market? Two issues that come or have to be addressed in this regard. First of all, it's the quality. A brand of Kenyan seafarers that meets global industry needs beyond the basic statutory requirements of the STCW Convention, as exposed under the Kenya Merchant Shipping Act of 2009 and the Merchant Shipping Training and Certification Regulations of 2016, our own. So when we're addressing quality, we are looking at something way beyond the minimum requirements. Yeah? The statutory requirements are the irreducible minimum. So as a maritime training institution, we are looking at producing a product and send it to the market, but it has to be a quality product that meets and supersedes the basic requirements of regulations. So this is a key thing. And secondly is the numbers, the quantity. One of the challenges that, or perhaps a question posed by many of these companies would be, are you a reliable source then of this maritime labor? Do you have, can you produce a reliable, steady and reliable product that we can depend upon? You know? Nobody wants to be picking some small pockets from here and there. When they shift focus, they need you to enter into long-term contractual commitments. So these two things I would say overall would be the key issues to be addressed as we are looking forward to taking up our fair share of the global market when it comes to seafarers, and it would apply to other affiliate allied professions as well. We're talking oil and gas and so on and so forth, where I have been in for quite a number of years. So when TUM then, as a university, as a maritime education and training institute, to get this mission done, to play its role, the university will of necessity require the appropriate structures and resources. MPK, through its engagement with TUM, is very encouraged by the Technical University's resolution to establish the Maritime and Seafarer Training Institute, a dedicated institute which, with a focused approach, the institute should plug in the university into the national endeavor to develop MAT, Maritime Education and Training, as laid out in the MTP4. Section 6524, 6.5.2.4 of MTP4, the current one, 2023-2027, provides programs, enumerates a number of programs which national resources have been allocated. So such an institute is well placed to plug in the university into these programs and perhaps tap into the resources which are already allocated in there. MTP4 again wants ambitious implementation of AU Agenda 2063 and the African Union Agenda 2063, which incorporates the African Integrated Maritime Strategy 2050, commonly known as AIMS 2050. And Africa is ambitious, you know, but the lack of the human resource, or rather the weak human resource capacity, is one of the agendas that has been cited in all these regional instruments, policy instruments. Kenya in MTP4, if you look at the report, we report positively that at the end of MTP3, we had managed to implement 61% of our obligations under the AU Agenda 2063. So going forward then, seeing the commitment that Kenya has on the regional policy instruments, part of which is the African Integrated Maritime Strategy, is motivating, because therein lies the role that Technical University of Mombasa, in its endeavor to produce qualified seafarers and other maritime professions, finds its role in there. Again, the Institute, I hope, and this is our prayer, that will be focused and plug in the Technical University of Mombasa, not only on the government programs, but in other regional programs such as the Technical Cooperation Program under the International Maritime Organization, which is very receptive of ideas and development agenda, particularly in human capacity development. We are very lucky as a country because the regional headquarters is here in Gigiri, and they are able, perhaps I would cite an example of the Regional Maritime University of Ghana. It was set up under the technical cooperation programs of the IMO. Now, traditionally, there were two regional centers, one West Africa and the other one East Africa. East and South, South and East Africa. So even South Africa falls under the umbrella, within the ambit of the regional office in Gigiri. So we are very, very lucky. And actually, the head is a former pilot, Captain Dev Muli, a colleague from Cape here, who heads that program in IMO. So this again points to the opportunities which are wide open for TUM under the envisaged proposed institute. Turning to the students as I wind up, student buy-in in their ambition to place ourselves among leading maritime nations of the world is very, very important even at this level. You have to understand the way the maritime world works. Seated here, you're competing against maritime cadets around the world, in the Philippines, in the US, in the UK, South Africa here next door, and the rest. You are expected to compete globally. The shipping company will not be any lenient to you as opposed to any standard required of any other cadets or officers from around the world. So you have to understand the architecture of the shipping world, how it works, perhaps act locally, but you should always be thinking globally. It's very, very important. You're being prepared for responsibilities that may perhaps be beyond your present imagination, but definitely within your potential. You're able to do that. And we are living testimony of what Kenyans are capable of doing. I've had the opportunity to interact with you. I'm happy to be here with Chief Engineer Samba, with your very own Mr. Talib, and we have been where we would like you to go in amazing, amazing things around the world. So it is within your potential, but you have to be focused. You have to buy in on the ambition of promoting yourself to that global standard. Attention should not only be invested in academic subjects, but equally on character development. And this brings me to the issue of regimental training. I understand it may be uncomfortable, perhaps at the beginning, but your marching drills, RSM is here working very hard, your marching drills, your fitness programs, uniform requirements on your various programs within the university, very strict requirements beyond what is ordinarily expected of other students, is very key in making you who you aspire to be. It's very, very important. So we pay attention to both aspects of your training, yes, the character development as well as the academic, your own academic performance and achievements. Regimental training is vital, very instrumental in inculcating discipline, confidence, resilience, fidelity to your profession, teamwork and accountability. You'll have a little lenient time, perhaps, not as lenient as you may imagine, during your cadetship. But immediately you come back and you do your oral exams at Kenya Maritime Authority, and the government certifies you as an officer, whether it's a deck officer or an engineering officer. The next ship you will join, you'll jump in headlong into the deep end. The responsibilities are huge. I've given you a number of examples before. The ships we handle here are 10,000, 100,000, 110,000 deadweight tanker. The cargo is several billions. The ship itself runs into a similar figure, and you have lives. And if you were to make an error in judgment, then any catastrophe that may occur, whether it's an explosion of that tanker or gas carrier or oil, petroleum product carrier, or pollution of the environment, will cost billions. The cleanup, I think we have experts here, environmental experts here will tell you that the cleanup is something that we would not want to imagine for a developing nation such as ours. So these are the things that you will be put in charge of, even as a junior officer on board. So being prepared for massive responsibilities, and the learning curve is very, very steep on board. Your resilience, your character, how it is shaped here is very key in preparing you for the world outside. So I call upon you to buy into the program, the regimental side of it, or the academic part of it. It's quite wide, but buy into it and invest yourself so that you can play your role in positioning TUM and yourselves at par with other maritime professionals around the world. In conclusion, the Association of Maritime Practitioners of Kenya wishes to reassure you, Madam VC, the university under your leadership, of our continued support as TUM scales the heights to claim its natural seat at the top of maritime education and training. To this end, going forward, we'll avail our technical committees of the MPK, which are fashioned in the image, in the structure of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. This helps us to maintain focus and engage issues as they arise. We have 6 technical committees in the MPK. We have a technical committee on maritime safety and security. We have a technical committee on marine engineering and maritime technology. Each one is headed by a well-qualified practitioner. So maritime engineering and maritime technology by engineer Abubakar, Ahmed Abubakar. Maritime Law and Policy by Advocate of the High Court, Njoki, was a candidate for the just concluded LSK elections. She chairs the technical committee of Maritime Law and Policy, MPK. She's an advocate of the High Court, of course, and she's a PhD researcher in maritime law at the University of Nairobi. She's our member and a chair of our technical committee. Technical committee on ports, shipping and logistics, chaired by Ms. Mwanaulu Isa, is director at ISCOS, the Intergovernmental Standing Committee on Shipping. She headed the Maritime Single Window project at Kentrade. So well able, well qualified, and these are people we can bring, at your disposal to engage any pertinent issues in these respective domains. Technical Committee on Fisheries and Marine Science, and lastly, but most important perhaps, is the Technical Committee on Maritime Education and Training, headed by yours truly. So I thank you, and very privileged to be here. We have a session. I think I may have a few questions to answer along the way. I'll be happy to engage the session further in that regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, our guest for today. Two key words, resilience and character, if you indeed want to move forward. Two very important words, resilience and character. At this juncture, I'm honored and humbled to introduce the panelists who are going to make up the panel discussion. Once I read your name and I also describe the panelists, they will move upstage so that after that we can start the panel discussion. Our first panelist is our very own Professor Laila Abubakar. Professor Laila Abubakar is the CEO and the Vice Chancellor of the Technical University of Mombasa. She is well known for her role in promoting science, technology, and innovation. She is a professor of biochemistry, having obtained her PhD and a Master of Science in Biochemistry from the University of Nairobi. This is under the German Academic Exchange Service and the European Union Fellowships, respectively. She is also an alumni of Aldina Vishram High School, where she sat her A-levels in the 80s. Professor Abubakar began her professional career as a researcher with the Kenya Marine and Fisheries Research Institute, KEMFRI, before moving to the University of Nairobi, where she rose the ranks of academic and professional leadership. She is an active researcher and has won several research grants and awards and published many scholarly journals in refereed national and international journals. This has led to her being accorded the University of Nairobi Dean's Award for Scholarship and Research in 2011 and 2012. She was also awarded the first prize at the Molecular Parasitology Conference held at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in the USA in 2002. And she also won the first prize in the ISIPE Governing Council Research Award 2002, and also second prize for research dissemination in energy, water, and climate change by the National Council for Science and Technology, among others. Professor Abubakar has also maintained a dynamic academic and professional links with several universities and organizations. She's also fostered collaborative projects and has contributed in strengthening the capacity in the region. She has successfully mentored and supervised over 40 postgraduate students. Among her special appointments, beginning Makofi, is that she is a member of the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms in Kenya, that is 2022 to 2023. Makofi kwake jamani? Yes. Those who want to be like the VC, CV lazima ingare. The second panelist you're having today is Captain Suleiman Bakari. Captain Suleiman is a seasoned mariner, UK qualified and licensed master mariner of ships of unlimited tonnage and area of trade Apex Merchant Navy qualification with pertinent seagoing experience. He is also a UK qualified and practicing marine systems lead auditor, that is QHSSE, Quality, Health, Safety, Security and Environment, ISO standards in International Safety Management Code, ISM, International Safety Management Code, ISPS, and Marine Labour Convention, MLC conventions. Captain Suleiman is also a UK qualified maritime security practitioner with ISPS designated maritime security roles, that is Ship Security Officer SSO and Company Security Officer CSO. He's also a UK qualified maritime safety manager, including offshore oil and gas industry safety qualification. He is a maritime practitioner where he is a consultant in maritime law and policy, survey, audit, brokerage, and alternative dispute resolution. He holds a UK Master of Laws in International Commercial and Maritime Law, majoring in Law of the Sea, Admiralty Law, and Oil and Gas Law. Currently, he is a senior marine pilot at Kenya Ports Authority, a member of the National Technical Committee on Ships and Marine Technology, that's with Kenya Bureau of Standard TC115, and the president of the Association of Maritime Practitioners Kenya. Karibu sir. Our next expert panelist is Chief Engineer Luke Samba. Chief Engineer Luke Samba is a seasoned Chief Engineer and Maritime Engineering practitioner. Chief Engineer Samba holds a Chief Engineer Class 1 Certificate of Competence from Singapore, in addition to an undergraduate degree in Mechanical Engineering. Currently, He is the Port State Control Officer at the Kenya Maritime Authority. He undertook a graduate mechanical engineer conversion program at the Singapore Maritime Academy in order to obtain a license as a marine engineer. He has sailed with Pacific International Lines of Singapore. Mr. Samba is currently a Port State Control Officer, overseeing the inspection of all foreign ships that call Kenya ports for safety, security, maritime environment protection, and the welfare of seafarers. Previously, he served as the Acting Director of Maritime Safety at the Maritime Regulator. He is the Vice President, Engineering Association of Maritime Practitioners in Kenya, and a member of the Technical Committee on Marine Engineering and Maritime Technology, FAMP-K. He is also one of the experts for the Maritime Technology Cooperation Centers for Africa, MTCC Africa, which is jointly run by JKUAT, that is Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology, Kenya Maritime Authority, and the Kenya Ports Authority. Karibu, Engineer. The next expert panelist is Ms. Josephine Nthia. Ms. Josephine Nthia is a seasoned maritime practitioner, having served in the maritime sector for 17 years in various departments, including the legal and board services, maritime safety and maritime education, training and labor. She has been involved in the development of the legal and regulatory framework, including the Merchant Shipping Act of 2009 and also subsidiary legislations. She has more than 10 years experience in drafting maritime legislation to domesticate various international maritime instruments to which Kenya is a party. Ms. Nthia is the single point of contact, SPC, for the International Maritime Organization Member State Audit Committee, IMSAS, for implementation of the IMO instruments, a responsibility she has carried out seamlessly, starting from the pre-audit, IMSAS audit, and post-audit processes in accordance to the IMSAS audit framework. She has recently been evaluated and approved by the IMO as an IMSAS auditor in accordance to the procedures of the IMO Audit Scheme Resolution A.1067/28. She coordinates the Interagency Legal Technical Committee on transposition of the IMO mandatory instruments and circulars into national legislation. She is a graduate of the International Maritime Law Institute, IMLI, Malta, earning a Master's in Humanities in International Maritime Legislation, and the World Maritime University, graduating with a Master of Science in Maritime Affairs, specializing in maritime education and training. She is an associate member of AMP and a member of the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, ICS. Karibu, Madam. The next expert panelist we are having today is Sabrina Mkare Jefwa. Sabrina Mkare Jefwa is a dedicated legal professional from Kilifi County in Kenya, specializing in international maritime law with a keen focus on environmental protection. Currently, she's attached to the Kenya Maritime Authority in the legal department, and she's equipped with a Master of Law, LLM, in International Maritime Law from Swansea University and a Bachelor of Arts in Criminal Law from Nottingham Trent University. She possesses a solid academic foundation complemented by practical experience. She has as an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Arbitrators in UK and an associate member of the Association of Maritime Practitioners in Kenya. She contributes immensely to the advancement of her field by leveraging her experiences and expertise to drive positive change on both local and international scales. Sabrina's participation in significant events such as the Africa Climate Change Week and the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNCS 6, underscores our commitment to addressing global environmental challenges and promoting sustainable practices within the maritime industry. Currently, she is pursuing a PhD in environmental law at the University of Nairobi. Sabrina's research interest centers on implications of the combined exclusive maritime zones of Africa on regional environmental law enforcement within the Western Indian Ocean countries. Karibu, Madam. And last but not least is our moderator for today, Talib Ibrahim Mohammed. Talib Ibrahim Mohammed is a qualified merchant navy officer and a maritime consultant, currently an academic staff and the deputy responsible person for seafarers courses at the Technical University of Mombasa in Kenya. Talib is also an alma mater for both the Arab Academy for Science, Technology and Maritime Transport in Egypt and the World Maritime University for postgraduate studies, where he graduated with a Master of Science degree in Maritime Affairs, specializing in maritime education and training. He has on numerous occasions been engaged with the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development as a maritime curriculum expert. He is a member of the Syllabus Committee established by the Merchant Shipping, Training and Certification Regulators of Kenya. Talib is a fellow of the Association of Maritime Practitioners Kenya, FAMP-K, and at present he's also the Vice President for Nautical. He's also a member of the Nautical Institute of UK and associate member of the Royal Institution of Naval Architecture in the UK. Talib is the current chairperson of the AMPK Technical Committee on Maritime Education and Training. Karibuni sana. So at this juncture, I'll leave you to a moderator and expert panel to continue with the panel discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sylvia. The Vice Chancellor, Technical University of Mombasa, Captain Suleiman Bakari, the President, the Association of Maritime Practitioners Kenya, and representing the Harbour Master, Kenya Ports Authority, Captain Ali Abdile. All our panelists, I would like to welcome you to the Technical University of Mombasa. The Technical University of Mombasa, from its inception, has been a beacon of seafarer training, with seafarer training starting as early as 1948. And we have continued the fire, and we are stoking the fire more to burn brightly in seafarer training. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to have a very exciting session, a plenary session on matters blue economy and maritime affairs. Blue economy and maritime affairs have different sectors, and the sectors, as they are being repositioned and realigned currently with the development at the global space. First, I would like to invite Captain Suleiman Bakari, President of the Association of Maritime Practitioners, to give a word and opinion on matters relating to maritime law and policy in the blue economy sector, and that would touch broadly on maritime law, policy, and governance. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon once again. I have been requested to make a comment on maritime law and policy, and I would want to cite, perhaps for purposes of sparring or steering a discussion on the same, one or two key challenges that I believe are very, very important in this discourse. And one of the challenges when it comes to maritime law and policy, both development and implementation, is the cross-cutting nature of the policies. And this means that there is a broad-based participation required of necessity in order to have sound maritime policies, and even in the law development process. So the cross-cutting nature in maritime policies lends itself to the necessity of a very broad-based process when it comes to development and even implementation. And that leads to another challenge. The cross-cutting nature in maritime law and policy lends itself to another, I think, much more critical challenge when it comes to Kenya in particular. And this is the phenomenon of overlapping mandate. And I will cite a few examples that I'm able to quickly reference here. For example, when it comes to ports and shipping, we have the Kenya Maritime Authority and Kenya Ports Authority, all with various mandates. And more often than not, we find that these two authorities develop independent policies or rather inform various discourses, and they find themselves at loggerheads. Each rightfully claiming to have a mandate over certain subsectors of the ports and shipping, or rather certain sections of the ports and shipping subsector. A good example would be maybe aids to navigation. Aids to navigation are very, very critical infrastructure provided for coastal navigation within our waters. And you'll find Kenya Maritime Authority, the Kenya Maritime Authority under the Merchant Shipping Act, citing, or rather there's a provision for that mandate under the Merchant Shipping Act, housed under the Kenya Maritime Authority as the lead agency. Again, the Kenya Ports Authority would again have a similar provision in its act, and that is one of the areas where you can find discrepancies in law, policy, and the implementation of the same. In maritime environment management, including coastal zone management, Kenya Maritime Authority, KPA, the National Environmental Management Authority, NIMA, Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS, Kenya Fisheries Service, and State Department for Fisheries and Aquaculture, again. You find that different agencies lay claim to a certain stake, and most of the time this is not clearly or well demarcated mandate, and it leads into problems when it comes to the policy formulation and even the implementation of the same. In maritime law and policy, of course, the State Department for Transport, the State Department for Shipping and Maritime Affairs, again, maritime shipping and maritime affairs was carved out, or was housed originally within the State Department for Transport. So being a new department in government would understand that there has to be a little bit of push and pull between the original transport department and the new department under the Ministry for Blue Economy, which understandably wants to carve out its own mandate from the previous home where it was housed. Maritime Safety and Security, Kenya Maritime Authority, KPA, Kenya Coast Guard now, and you'd find that the Kenya Coast Guard Act, again, would want to push perhaps the Act tends to push into and eat into the mandate of Kenya Maritime Authority. So at some point, this becomes a very big challenge on who does what, and resource allocation and the policy implementation becomes a problem. Again, the Kenya Navy as well, the Maritime Police, the National Police has its own Maritime Police section or branch that also has certain mandate on the same, on maritime security in particular. So who does what becomes a very, very big challenge. I would say in our particular case, clarity, lack of clarity would stand out, and overlapping mandate would stand out to be one of the key challenges when it comes to policy development, and most importantly, when it comes to policy development. And this, of course, has implication on resource allocation, and so on and so forth. I would briefly say those two are the key challenges when it comes to the policy development and implementation, particularly in the maritime sector in Kenya. Our maritime sector is developing, so these challenges are expected. Sometimes we model ourselves along two parallel paths. For example, the Kenya Coast Guard, there was a split between whether it should be modeled the UK way, we should go the UK way, or the US way. You know, where the US is an enforcement agency, the US Coast Guard. The UK is more or less a regulator, you know, and without any resources or units for example, for maritime interdictions and so on and so forth, while the US one undertakes all that. Again, the UK is in charge of maritime education and training. That's the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency in the UK. The Kenyan one as well is conflicted between how it wants to model itself. Even though we have, again, conflicts alongside these acts as to who should do what. So I would say this is one of the most challenging issues when it comes to maritime policy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Captain Suleiman Bakari, President of the MPK, on the remarks on maritime law, governance, and policy. When we talk about maritime law, governance, and policy, in our sphere in the maritime industry, we also very much look into the technology and how technology affects the maritime industry and what are the dynamics that are giving either pressure, what we call pressure to the operations in the ships, or that are also affecting and driving the change when it comes to marine engineering ashore. With that, probably we need to get the expert opinion of Chief Engineer Luke Samba on marine engineering and maritime technology. What are the dynamics in this current age of technological advances that would push forward either progress or it would unconsciously or subconsciously hinder progress when it comes to shipboard operations and also the marine engineering sector as a whole?
Thank you very much for the question, and thank you very much for the arrangements for this conference and for the invitation to speak on the issue of technology and marine engineering. At the moment, the issue we are grappling with is the issue of decarbonization and the issue of addressing climate change. And the maritime sector and marine engineering in particular is not left behind. We are so much into the issue of technology change and advances and how it will impact marine engineering and seafaring and the blue economy at large. The talk out there is that we are undergoing what we call the fourth propulsion revolution. And you know, the main work of engineering and technology is basically to propel the ship. And this fourth propulsion revolution, its main driver is the issue of decarbonization and reducing the CO2 emission from the shipping industry. The first revolution is when we moved from paddling and oaring to using sails. And then the sails slowly gave up the space to the issue of steam and boilers and steam turbines. And then from there, we've come to marine engines, the diesel revolution, which started about slightly over 100 years ago. And now we are saying the diesel engine is slowly being phased out because of the drive for decarbonization. And therefore, as we move ahead, there'll be a lot of change, there'll be a very big transition, and this is what is driving it. Decarbonization, which are these alternative fuels that we are going to use, and coupled with decarbonization is the issue of digitalization. And these are issues that we are grappling with. We are looking at how are we going to play our part. How is the shipping sector going to decarbonize by the year 2050? And what are these innovative solutions that we are going to come up with that will result in a decarbonized world, in a net zero shipping sector, and in a sector that has played its role to address the issue of climate change. So for me, these are the two main matters that I can talk about: decarbonization and the issue of digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Engineer Samba. And as we are looking at the issue of decarbonization and the sulfur cap 2020, and also coming into force of the Annex 6 of the MARPOL Convention, we see that the ship is operating within a marine environment. And some of this needs regulation, and also some of the regulations that are there also need a review of those regulations which are concerned with the protection of the marine environment. So in terms of the regulations, and also in terms of not only the national regulations, but the national regulations which are at the global level, what would be your take in terms of domesticating those regulations within the framework of the country's national laws?
Thank you very much for this question. And regarding MARPOL Annex 6, which addresses the issue of sulfur, nitrous oxides, the issue of particulate matter, the main convention that we rely on is the MARPOL, the International Convention on Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL 7378. And it is developed under the auspices of the International Maritime Organization, which is a specialized UN agency to deal with issues, including the issue of pollution from ships. The beauty of the convention is that it offers flexibility. What the convention provides is a framework. So once the framework is there, it is the member states to determine how they are going to implement it. What is the approach that they are going to make? It is not prescriptive. So whatever setup, legislative setup that a country has, it is possible for them to bring into force and to domesticate the convention into their national law. And fortunately for us, our constitution has identified international law that Kenya has ratified as being part of our national law. And secondly, we have a pathway of how do we first ratify. There's a process of ratifying which is very clearly stated in our regulation. And secondly, how do we domesticate? How do we bring the international law now to be a national law and to address our specific and unique circumstances? And this is what, as a Port State Control Officer, I use when carrying out the implementation of the Convention for Ships Calling our ports. So the regulation, the convention is there at an international level, and then at a domestic level, we domesticate it and bring it to our unique circumstances, and then we are able to implement it to the benefit of the marine environment.
Thank you very much. And also to extend that conversation, we have a lawyer in the House, and the conference would very much love to hear what is the expert opinion in terms of environmental law in such a matter.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, I would start by saying that we need to acknowledge the challenges that our oceans face today. Currently, from my thesis findings, I find pollution and overfishing and even the impact of climate change are the main challenges that we have. And in the face of these challenges, we must understand and strengthen and enforce the legal frameworks designed to protect our marine ecosystems. And we must also safeguard our maritime environment, ensuring a legacy of abundance. Now, I come from Kilifi County, and from a very young age, I used to go to the ocean, and it went from a time where the fishermen used to complain that there's low fishing that's happening because of the climate change. And at that time, we weren't really big on climate change because we didn't even know what it was. And as I've grown up and I'm seeing these challenges they had, and I'm relating to them right now, and that's why I decided to even do the maritime law myself. So I think as a country, we need to first fulfill the international obligations of ratification and domestication of conventions or even agreements, the multilateral environmental agreements, that is. So I'd say currently we're in the process of amending the Merchant Shipping Act. We had public participation. We're including the MARPOL, Engineer Samba just mentioned, into the Merchant Shipping Act, which I feel is important because MARPOL is the main international convention covering prevention of pollution of the marine environment by ships. We also need to build capacity in the programs provided by UNEP, especially when it comes to the multilateral environmental agreements. Now, multilateral environmental agreements are agreements between two or more countries that assist in addressing specific environmental problems at both national, regional, and global levels. The best MEA that I found out was the UNFCCC, which is the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And we also have the Kyoto Protocol. We have the Convention on Biological Diversity as well. And when I was in the UNEA 6 panel as a delegate, we were also urged to talk about the BBNJ, which is the Beyond Borders National Jurisdiction Agreement. And when they talked about the Beyond Borders National Jurisdiction Agreement, I related it to my thesis because up till then, I only knew about UNCLOS, which is the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea. And I knew that was the main convention that bound us. But this convention, in my perspective, it has many gaps that we need to fill at a national level. For example, it provides for marine national resources conservation from Article 61 to 77. But what happens when you get beyond the high seas? What happens after the high seas? So when BBNJ was being discussed, and this is a high seas treaty, I found it very fascinating as to why Kenya hasn't talked about it and even tried to ratify it and even domesticate it, because we are facing challenges, but we can only address these challenges at this point up to our national jurisdiction. So what happens after our national jurisdiction? You know, so that's what I have to say about that right now.
Thank you very much for that deep insight. And as we have transversed from MAPOL to the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, we also find that it is very much vested in the interest of seafarers that they're able to protect the oceans. But as Madam Josephine would also attest to, that as much as the seafarers are being vested with the responsibility to protect the oceans, very many at times we find that their welfare is not catered for. So they provide very critical element of protection of the sea, but when it comes to welfare, there is a little bit of a problem there in the welfare of seafarers, Madam Josephine. So in terms of the welfare, where are we now as a country when it comes to the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, its implementation, the implementations of the instruments that are required to safeguard the interest of the seafarer, both at the national level and at the international level?
Thank you, moderator of the session. Good afternoon, everyone. I am privileged to be here this afternoon. I think this is a hall I registered in many, many years, I think 3 decades ago. So ideas become reality. So I believe you, my fellow TUM students, because I take myself still from TUM many years later, you will get here where we are, and one day you'll be here in this panel. Now, my question addresses particularly the cadets who are in this forum on the welfare of the seafarers. Kenya has ratified the Maritime Labour Convention 2006, and that was ratified by Kenya in 2013, and it entered into force in 2014. And thereafter, we've continued implementing the convention. And the convention actually is a Bill of Rights for seafarers. It is your constitution as a seafarer. So when you're out there at sea, you're supposed to know that your welfare, your rights, your fundamental rights for that matter are protected. The Maritime Labour Convention covers you as a whole under the 5 titles. And as a seafarer, you need to know that when you come to the training institution here at TUM, and they ask you for a medical fitness, it is again under your welfare, taking care of your welfare. In Title 1, they look at your minimum standards to be a seafarer to work on board a ship, and that's why your medical fitness is, your minimum age is taken care of. The second title is looking at your conditions of work. When you're employed on board a ship, and you're supposed to sign a seafarer's employment agreement, does it meet your standard? And that is where we come in as KMA. If you are in doubt, you can visit us. We can check for you if that employment agreement meets your conditions, whether the job you're being given on board is covered by the conditions you'll be given. And that now ties up to your training. The SCA, or the Seafarer Employment Agreement you're given under the MLC, is tied also to the level and the responsibility you're going to serve on board ship. If you're a deck officer at a certain level, you hear the terminologies they use, like class 2, class 3, and class 1, the conditions will definitely be different. So MLC ties very well to the training standards, ties very well to the medical fitness standards, and now I come to the third title, whereby the MLC ties to your conditions of work on board, including food, accommodation, and recreation. So when you're on board ship, you're not only required to work, but you're also supposed to have a rest when it is your time off work. And also when you're supposed to eat food that is fit for you as a seafarer. And I will speak because we're in Mombasa and we're in the holy month of Ramadan. If you're Muslim, your preference and your religious background is considered. You will not be forced to eat what does not align to your religious standards. So MLC takes care of us, as well as ensures that you exercise your recreation. When Captain, the president of AMP Kenya, was speaking, I heard him mention to the cadets about your fitness. Your fitness is not only taken care of by MLC, but it will affect also your embarkation process. I've had some applicants say that we are paying more for the medical fitness exams than the others. For example, if you visit a medical practitioner approved by KMA or by the ship owner, they'll ask you for your BMI. In the event that your BMI is beyond 25, they'll ask you to have additional examinations, medical examination. That will mean that one seafarer will get a medical examination, for example, at Kenya shillings 2,000, and another one will get the same medical examination and 30,000. They'll be asking why. So you understand why the institution requires you to be medically fit, and that ties up to the MLC requirements and the Merchant Shipping Act requirements. When you go to Title 4, it looks at your welfare as well as your social and health protection. I'm sure many of you have heard His Excellency, the President, speaking about SHIF. It is not only for the shore-based workers. The Maritime Labour Convention clearly says that a seafarer should not be discriminated, in my own words, but it says you should not be given no less than the shore-based workers. So when you're being given social and health benefits, they should be no less than shore-based workers. So you are entitled to the national health and social benefits. So as you go up to sea, just know that the country has ratified the convention and you are well provided for. Then we come to Title 5, which is on enforcement, whereby Engineer Samba comes in. We also come in the Maritime Labour Department, whereby we have the national obligations, where there is a flag state obligation. If it's a Kenyan ship, we ensure that you are taken care of, your welfare, your working conditions, your fundamental rights and freedoms on board the ship are met. If it is a foreign ship, Engineer Samba, as a port state control officer, will go on board on sampled ships that come to Mombasa port. We'll check whether the conditions are met in foreign ships. As a labor supplying country, because all of us are speaking towards having 4,000 seafarers on board ship every year, we are obligated to ensure that the persons or companies that are recruiting seafarers in Kenya meet the standards under the MLC and under our national laws, because we have domesticated the convention. So when you hear us talking about licensing, recruitment, and placement services, is we are, as a labor supplying country, we are required to do so. And we have provided that on the websites so that you are not conned or you are not taken advantage of. Whenever we license recruitment and placement agents that will take you on board, we ensure that they are on our website. If you need clarity, that information is also available. The training institutions that will come back, they're very, very important in terms of Maritime Labour Convention, because as I said before, if I did, I'm not very sure I did, it is a tripartite international instrument, which means that it was designed and drafted by ship owners, seafarers, and the governments as implementers. Same case applies. When we come to the training institutions, they are the ones who provide the workers, the employees, the seafarers who work on board ship. Therefore, the MLC cannot be fully implemented under our national laws and other countries' laws, other flags' laws, without quality training standards, because seafarers are expected to meet those international training standards, because they operate vessels that traverse in the world ports and in the international waters that Sabrina spoke about. So MLC is the fourth pillar after SOLAS, STCW, and MAPO Convention. And as Captain Talib mentioned, that MLC is very important for you, because much as you are expected to implement the international conventions, your rights, your conditions of work, as well as your welfare should be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Josephine, and I think you have brought a very important aspect into this whole conversation, where we have now moved from the seafarer working to now how does the seafarer get to work, where now we come to the training institutions. And with the training institutions, a very critical element is not only the infrastructure, but the very essence of training, which is quality in training. And that now brings the question, as we are here today in TUM, hosting this Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs session. TUM is one of the maritime training institutions in Kenya. And Madam VC, if I may compress all the thoughts that I have to 3 simple areas. What it takes to train, what it takes to enhance the quality and sustain the quality of training, and as seafarers transition from their seagoing careers to shore-based jobs, they need other form of academic training that they need, and also the training institutions need seafarers who are now trained higher in academic training and having high academic qualification, and that we talk about the postgraduate qualification. So as the Technical University of Mombasa, where does TUM come in and give, probably from experience, advice on the infrastructure, the quality of training, the vision of the university in terms of advancing the training of seafarers beyond the technical and professional training?
Thank you, Twalib. And mine is just, first of all, to thank the panelists who are here with us and the audience. About Technical University of Mombasa, as you heard when Captain Suleiman was talking, that TUM is asserting its rightful position, because the training of the maritime training at Technical University of Mombasa did not start today. In 1948, when this institution was established, it actually started maritime training then. So why then are we saying that we are asserting our rightful position? It's simply because we know that because of our geographical position and being the university at sea level, we are the ones who should actually be championing also this training of the seafarers and training in maritime industry. But as you rightly said, there are challenges there because first of all, maritime training, education and training is highly competency-based and it's hands-on. And therefore, it requires not only infrastructure, but it also requires dedicated trainers who would actually train these seafarers or the maritime practitioners. So for you to do that training, there are certain things that are required that you need to have in your institution. For example, we've been grappling with the issue of survival training pool, for example, for our cadets here at TUM. It is very, very frustrating because you find that even the pools that we have, they have to have a certain specification for the divers and so on and so forth. So those are also things that we have to grapple with if you have to have good trainers or you are trained to the quality that is required. Of course, the issue of firefighting equipment that is also required, marine engine simulators, all these are very, very expensive equipments and they are required. So the training is highly, if I may say, very expensive, and it requires a lot of, should I say, inputs into that training. We also have the problem of strainers. You know, as you rightly said, and we talked about the issue of regulations here. We have Kenya Maritime Authority, which does the regulations, and then we also have our Commission for University Education, which also is a regulator on one hand. Then we have the TVETA for the TVET programs. and so on and so forth. So we have a number of regulators here, and we have to satisfy the requirements, because as you know, we are not training for Kenya alone. The standards are supposed to be globally accepted. So our trainers or our students, when they go out there after being trained, they need to qualify to be of global excellence, so that everybody out there will be, or wherever they go, they will be able to work. So to me, I feel that the issue of practitioners, for example, getting the right trainers to train the students, has been a nightmare for Technical University of Mombasa, because you find that, for one, the issue of competency, as I said. So the certificate of competency is very, very important, or it is key for the trainers who will train these students. But at the same time, you find that when it comes to the Commission for University Education, if it's, for example, a diploma program, then you must have a degree. If it is an undergraduate program, then you must have at least a master's for you to be able to train, or to become a lecturer, you need to have a PhD, and so on and so forth. And those people who are in that area of jurisdiction, they are very, very few. I want to take this opportunity to thank currently the Association for Maritime Practitioners for actually availing a number of people to come and train. KPA, like our marine pilots, one of them, as I said, Captain Suleiman here, he trains our students. And the reason why we have to go to the industry to get these trainers or these practitioners to come and train our students is because we do not have enough people as trainers. And then we also now, as I said, we grapple with the fact that we have to satisfy the Commission for University Education, and at the same time satisfy the KMA and other regulations that are required globally for the training of the seafarers and other marine engineers. For example, you find that at TUM, for example, we have a number of programs. We have the logistics program, that is the maritime transport logistics and shipping also. We have that program. And we also have the marine engineering programs, that is in the School of Engineering, together with the nautical science programs. All those programs require certain specifications for you to be able to accredit those programs. KMA will tell you, for us to accredit such a program, you require A, B, C, D. Then the Commission for University Education also has its own requirement for our programs. So this can be a nightmare. But as I said, we have been able to circumvent and navigate through that because of as I said, the industry. KPA allows their marine pilots to train our students. And we normally have a number of also adjunct lecturers and senior lecturers who come to TUM to train our students. So our vision is to become the center of excellence in maritime education, training, research, and innovation. And I think we are on the right path, and we believe that we will be able to do it. I know it is cost intensive, but where there's a will, there's always a way.
Thank you very much, Professor, for that wonderful insight. And one of the things that has come out is the relevance of the practitioner linkage with the universities. And this academia-industry linkage cannot be overlooked, neither can it be understated at any one particular time. Captain Suleiman Bakari, in terms of the linkage and the involvement of practitioners in the academic process, and also giving the backing and the support, especially for maritime education and training in this country, and specifically for TUM, beyond the normal and the formative way of the industry-academia linkage, in your opinion, as I prepare to take questions from the audience, what are the critical elements that must be realized for sustainable
quality in maritime education and training?
Thank you so much once again, our very able moderator for this afternoon. A number of things come to mind when it comes to quality. TUM has maintained a very strict policy of doing its best to ensure that it attracts or it engages the right trainers, for example. Notwithstanding the difficulty in that, as has been explained by our VC. This is not the path that other maritime education and training institutions have taken. And sadly, it has caused a lot of audit queries. Kenya Maritime Authority officers who are here would attest to that, where we would have non-mariners purporting to train mariners. It's like having with all due respect to other professions, but I'm trying to find a safe way of giving an analogy, a safe analogy for that matter. In the health sciences, it's like having somebody who's done, say, public health, and then just a degree in public health management, for example, then would expect that person to train and qualify medical doctors, purporting to be within the same sphere as it is, So other institutions, perhaps out of desperation, they have gone in a route that does not comply to the regulations as they are. So TUM has taken the tough road, but the correct one, notwithstanding the challenges. Now we've managed as MPK, as elaborated by our VC, to try and encourage practitioners to participate in training the next generation of Kenyan seafarers. And TUM, taking its rightful position again, coming back to that, was able to mount some courses here last year, a number of them, and I will mention a few, which were conducted in this country for the first time. And still, this remains to be the only institution that has ever mounted successfully and graduated students in these courses. And these are courses regulated under the International Convention, certified by KMA. So the way the maritime world works is that the training provider trains the student, and then it examines the student, trains the student, examines, and then it gives an assurance, so to speak, to an administration, a maritime administration, which is the certifying authority. So we have that distinction between a training institution and a certifying institution. In many of the courses under the STCW Convention, which is espoused by the Merchant Shipping Act of Kenya and the Merchant Shipping Training and Certification Regulations, Kenya Maritime Authority is the only government agency which certify any course under the STCW Convention, which are the necessary courses for our cadets to be able to work on board ships. So KMA comes, TUM develops the curriculum, KMA comes and audits TUM as a maritime education and training provider, and then TUM now then holds a course, the course that has been duly approved. Then it sends these duly examined students to the Maritime Agency for them to be certified. Now, TUM was able last year to hold maritime security courses, the designated security, what we call DSD, designated security duties, persons with designated security duties on board ships, which is a course that is mandatory for our ratings to be able to get jobs on board ship. Without that, then they will not be able to be attractive to the shipping companies. We have a lower course, what we call security awareness course, which is held both here and at Bandari Maritime Academy. But this is the bare minimum. And that person is only aware and allowed to be in that maritime space, but they cannot partake security duties on board that ship. Now, first with an option of having a seafarer, a rating, and an officer with a security awareness certificate and a designated security duties certificate. Any shipping company, and it is a requirement now globally, they would prefer to employ the one with the DSD course. TUM is the only institution in Kenya that has successfully mounted that course, duly approved by Kenya Maritime Authority, and has had its students duly certified by Kenya Maritime Authority. And these students are out there as we speak, working in ships. The instructors gladly report to the conference were all members of the MARITIME. So we worked very hard to bring them on board. Chief Engineer Mojasi, Chief Engineer Karanja, myself, Talib, and others whom we recruited and brought on board so that we are able to mount that training. Again, the SSO, a Ship Security Officer, this is a higher level qualification, again held here in this country for the first time, and still TUM remains the only institution approved by the government to hold that course. The only one. So I believe being stakeholders, you understand what that means. And, again, tanker, oil and tanker, chemical and tanker, oil, chemical and gas tanker courses. We were able to hold them here, duly approved again by the government, and the only institution in the country, for the first time ever, and still the only one approved. And this was done, by members of the MARITIME. Again, chief engineers, captains, who we were able to bring them on board and successfully hold those courses, audited, duly audited. So there's a pilot class where we have auditors from the government coming, and again we get full approval to hold the full courses for a period of the validity of the certificate, the only one again. So when it comes to the linkage between TUM and practitioners, MARITIME undertakes, has taken upon itself to support TUM, to attract the rightful qualified persons who are not only qualified, and not only preferred, but the only one whom would be allowed by law to conduct the training. KMA and Engineer Samba is here. It will be in breach of regulation for non-mariners to purport to conduct those courses. No wonder then the other institutions that have tried to do it, in other ways, they have not successfully been granted approval by the government. So TUM is ahead of the pack, so to speak, and MARITIME is happy and proud to be part and parcel of that journey. The other challenge when it comes to the linkage with the practitioners is, as Professor has rightfully pointed out, is the non-recognition of the competency courses within the national qualification framework. And we are happy to say that we've engaged KNQA, and I think processes are now underway to try and interpret these marine qualifications. Because in the UK, for example, in Europe, the UK, the US, Australia, Singapore, and the rest, both of us, myself, Chief Engineer Samba, have done both our bachelor's and master's degree. But supposing there is a chief engineer who is a duly licensed chief engineer, has gone through all the years, 12, 13 years of training, meeting the all statutory requirements, elsewhere in the world, that person is admitted to a master's degree. You know, there's no requirement for them to do a bachelor's degree. But in Kenya, this has been a challenge. Another challenge was for EBK, for example, to recognize marine engineers. And that was a battle, you know, that in its own right took so long. Yeah? Even though some of these engineers are chartered engineers in the UK, but again, EBK was having issues with recognizing that. So, understanding, I think our systems are yet to understand. And I think the easiest, perhaps the right way provided by regulation is for these qualifications to be interpreted in the Kenya National Qualification Framework within the Kenya National Qualification Authority, within that. So that is something that we as an association are engaged, and hopefully it will make it easy again to have these practitioners, particularly the ones without the academic degrees, to be involved in the training once their qualifications are understood within our national framework. Thirdly and lastly, I think MPK, and this is a discussion we've had with our VC professor, we need to take advantage of the practitioners we have, the qualified officers we have, and even the junior officers we have in the country, because the senior are quite few, who are able and rightfully qualified under our regulations, and KMA would authorize them, they are approved within our regulations to hold rating courses. So we should take advantage of that. It is easier to mount the rating courses. To explain this, we have two cadres when it comes to shipboard personnel. We have the officer cadre, ourselves, and what we are preparing the cadets to become. And we have the non-officer cadre, the NCOs, so to speak, just like in the military. So these ones, their courses are not necessarily required to be taught by captains and chief engineers. They can be taught by, say, you know, OWs and those NCOs with a certain amount of sea experience as provided for under our regulations. So they are easier. The challenge of instructors and trainers is not as acute as when we are talking about, you know, the training of officer cadets, you know, in the degree courses. So these are courses that can be mounted. And TUM, again, stands a chance to take leadership in this. And these are trained in bigger numbers. They're employed, again, out in the ships in bigger numbers. Their trainings are shorter, less resource intensive, and the trainers, the instructors, are more readily available as opposed to the degree and diploma courses. So maybe, Mr. Talib, this is a direction which maybe TUM should be encouraged to take. Thank you so much. And MPK, again, stands very ready to facilitate you know, the provision of these instructors, most of whom are, again, our members. We will support that endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your well-elaborated comments. And as I prepare to take questions from both the audience on this side and the cadets, and I can see Dr. Nato, an environmental expert here, and I think one or two things might pop up on his head as either questions or recommendations. And before I give him the microphone, I would like to invite the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics to also give us his mind in terms of this whole affair of maritime education and training.
Thank you, Tarib, and thank you, our panelists. Mine may be misplaced, but it's in the right place. Why? Because my training is in medicine. I'm a medical doctor, and so in this space, I am a novice, I'm a lay person. But by association, particularly working with Tarib here, I've understood sufficiently matters pertaining to nautical sciences, marine. And so for me, as I said earlier, is to say that we are in the right place, in the right time, and I think there is a lot of space for all of us. But there's one key thing, and I'll remind our cadets, and many a times we think about the certificate we get from the institutions, and it is not unusual to find somebody coming to your office and saying, I have a certificate here. But that might not change. It is what you're going to do, not what the certificate will do for you. So as you are preparing these students, as you're preparing to go to the sea, and there's a lot of flexibility again, as an institution, as an academic division, we are thinking about how do we make it possible for you to achieve your academics and to achieve your sea time at the same time. So it will be a lot of work for all of us, and I think with our leadership of Vice Chancellor, she will give us that flexibility to be able to remain within the regulatory framework. Remember, she has time and again mentioned about Commission of University Education. We need to be careful about that. We need to be able to make sure that we are abiding by the regulatory framework, but also being flexible enough. And that this moment I'll be addressing my staff, because there are so many of us who are only aware of a certain traditional way of doing things. But this be business unusual. And I think, Captain Suleiman, we have been in this discussion and these thoughts, and I think at the end of the day, we shall have a product which satisfies all those requirements. And at this moment, I would like to appreciate the presence of Mahmoud from Swahili Port, who continues to be a very good supporter of our activities. And you know, part of the things you're talking about is innovation. And therefore, thinking about how can we deliver the same thing, same good quality product, but in a lesser stressful environment. So those are my thoughts, and I say they're misplaced, but they're in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DVC. And as I give the microphone to Dr. Nato, our quality assurance department is one of the key that made all these causes to happen, and we became the first to be able to mount very many causes. And with the interaction with the workshop on the STCW and Bennett evaluation, probably I could give our director some time to think about it and give us her thoughts on this process of regulatory compliance, especially in terms of the maritime industry. Welcome, Dr. Nato.
Thank you very much, Talib, for allowing me to ask a few questions that have popped up after you said they may pop up. For once, I think when I was discussing with my colleague Dean, I told him with a low voice that when I grow up, I want to be a captain because of the attention I will receive from the cadets. And Dr. Makonde reminded me that I'm already grown up and I cannot run away from my sociology responsibilities. So allow me to ask two questions to Captain Suleiman because of that. With regard to maritime governance and security, and then one question to Engineer Samba with regards to decarbonization and the MARBLE regulations. So the first question is, Captain Suleiman, you had indicated that there is multiplicity of organizations in governance in the maritime space, and you mentioned KPA, KMA, Coast Guard, and NEMA, and the rest. And I want to believe that the same replicates itself in the international waters, when we have quite a number of organizations that are also involved in that space. In terms of countries, we have France, USA, Netherlands, and the rest. Where you sit, do you have a feeling that this multiplicity compromises security in the maritime space. And then question number 2 on governance and the blue economy. We have always been telling our fishermen to go and fish in deep waters. And I know that whereas efforts have been made to equip them to go deeper into the waters, they haven't done that. On Tuesday, the CS for mining and maritime told us that there is heavy investment in building an infrastructure for landing sites. But we know that these landing sites may not be exploited by our local fishermen because they don't have the capacity to go into deep waters. And so my question is, who are the players in that deep waters in terms of fishing, and whose interests are the Coast Guard safeguarding? For Engineer Samba, you mentioned about decarbonization and the overall waste management issues on the ships. And I know that in the MABO regulations, we have very clear guidelines on waste management on the ship, particularly segregating waste into, I think, 14 fractions or thereabout. But where you sit, you are, I think, at that interface where very good regulations on the ship, but in terms of the transition of the waste that you have segregated to when it reaches the port, you encounter the regulations of the county that hosts the port. So how do you transit with that waste from the ship to the county that is now receiving the waste and may not have regulations that may be up to the standards that you are looking at? And do you feel perhaps frustrated when you are implementing that transition? Thank you very much.
Talib,
Yeah,
I have your permission? Yes? Okay. Thank you so much, Daktari, for those 2 questions. I'll try to answer them as quick as I can. The first question was on multiplicity of security roles at sea, particularly with the international navies. I think a quick breakdown on the jurisdiction, security jurisdictions at sea would quickly answer the question. We have maritime zones out at sea, from the land all the way to the high seas. And the jurisdiction and the roles that a coastal state plays vis-a-vis the state, what we call a flag state, the country of registration of the ship that is at sea, vis-a-vis other maritime nations or other states of the world play. So the roles are provided for depending on what zone we are talking about. So for example, coming from the port of Mombasa to a certain baseline, the baseline is drawn connecting certain points on the coast. That is internal waters. Now, internal waters is basically territorial waters. It's part of the land sovereignty. So we exercise complete sovereignty over these internal waters. Beyond that baseline, 12 nautical miles from the baseline. The baseline is drawn on points on the standard navigation charts. Beyond that baseline, and the baseline is quite a serious issue, yeah? Sometimes it is contested. So a country draws the baselines, proposes them to the UN, and then the UN would listen or entertain, for that matter, for purposes of arbitration, any reservations held by other countries as to the points or the drawing of the baseline. Yeah, this happens mostly when you have countries, you know, which have a conflicting maritime interest or competing maritime spaces. They're competing for something. In our case, the baseline is not a problem. So 12 nautical miles from the baseline, this is what we call territorial waters. Now, territorial waters, for all purposes, a country, a coastal state such as Kenya exercises full sovereignty, that would mean that any other security agency, say French Coast Guard or French Navy or any other agencies of another state, do not have jurisdiction to exercise any security roles within our territorial waters. So we have full sovereignty over the territorial waters, just like what we have in the internal waters. But there is the right of innocent passage. Yeah? That means we cannot, for no reason, and the reasons are provided in the Law of the Sea Convention, we cannot deny other ships belonging to other states of the world the right of innocent passage. Yes? So they are free to pass unless their passage in our territorial waters is prejudicial to the safety, security, and good order of that coastal state. And there are a number of reasons provided for in the Law of the Sea Convention 1982. So security roles all the way to the 12 nautical miles, again, this is exclusively ours. Yeah? So the Coast Guard will have jurisdiction, and the country will decide which of its agencies it has mandated under national law. So for example, if it is Kenya, then the Coast Guard will go beyond out within the 12 nautical miles, and it will exercise its mandate on security roles. KPA and the rest of them do not go out all the way to those. And KPA has very, very different mandate when it comes to that. It reports to National Police and the Coast Guard. It only reports to the agencies, the security agencies, for them to enforce. Yeah? So we are only there as observers and doing reporting roles. Now, beyond the 12 nautical miles, we enter into a space 12 nautical miles after the initial 12 nautical miles. That means 24 nautical miles now from the baseline. We enter the contiguous zone. Yeah? The contiguous zone is a zone which the coastal state has jurisdiction over 4 areas, what we call FISCs. You know, this is immigration, customs, sanitary, and F is fishing, immigration, customs, and sanitary. Yeah, sanitary is environmental. That means matters to do with environmental protection. Yeah, so these are the 4 areas where we have jurisdiction. So again, the coastal state now, any agency authorized or duly mandated by the coastal state, say Kenya or any other country, within 24 nautical miles from its baseline. The first 12, full sovereignty. The second 12 nautical miles, jurisdiction only on the 4. Yeah? So fishing, immigration, customs, and sanitary, commonly known as FISCs. So this, we are able now to police this area when it comes to these 4 issues. Yeah? Now, importantly, again, I should add, but I will add at the end, beyond this 200 nautical miles from the baseline, yeah, we enter, so basically beyond the 12 nautical miles, the rest of it would form what we call all the way to 200 nautical miles, the EEZ, the Economic Exclusive Zone. In this area, we have jurisdiction on exploitation of resources, yeah? Exploitation of resources on the seabed and on the water column. It's important to specify the water column. What it means is that all fishery resources in the water column are ours. And any mineral resources on the seabed and on the subsoil, they're also ours. So oil and gas deposits and all other rare minerals that are found at sea, these belong to the coastal state. Yeah. So again, our agencies, security agencies, can go all the way to 200 nautical miles to enforce the jurisdiction that we have on ownership of the resources. Resources on the water column, on the seabed, and on the subsoil. So any deposits on the subsoil belong to us. So we can only intervene on that particular, we have jurisdiction on that particular thing. We cannot, our Coast Guard cannot go out there and apprehend anyone for any other thing. Also for environmental protection for purposes, particularly if it will affect the area that we have full sovereignty over. For example, any pollution by ships in this area, particularly when we have reason to believe it will affect the areas where we have full sovereignty, again, we are able to intervene, conduct what we call maritime interdiction missions to stop that. And we are able again to arrest that vessel if what happens there affects us. But otherwise, we have no other jurisdiction except resources, and we give permission for any submarine cables, the fiber optics that are passing in our waters going to South Africa and the rest, they have to seek our permission, and so on and so forth. So this is the policing roles we have. Now, when it comes to a ship out at sea, then beyond our territorial waters, the first 12 nautical miles, other than these particular areas of jurisdiction that we have mentioned, any other powers of enforcement belong to the flag state, the state which that ship flies the flag. Yeah, it means it has been registered there. It's essentially a floating territory of that country. And our Coast Guard or anybody, including the US Navy and the rest of the navies which patrol the high seas, the areas beyond national jurisdiction, they cannot board unless they have good reason, including piracy, slavery and the rest, and these are provided for in law. Otherwise, you cannot board unless you have permission, because that is a territory of another state. So even at 12 of, say, 20 nautical miles, if the ship does not contravene those 4 areas, or it's exploiting resources, or it's broadcasting, for example, illegal broadcasting is one of the reasons provided for in law. If a ship comes here and it's broadcasting illegally, then our Coast Guard or any agency that is authorized by our national laws can intervene. Otherwise, nobody can, including the international navies. The navies only intervene, what we call maritime interdiction, in areas which are provided for in law, under the law of the sea. Piracy, if a ship is suspected to be conducting, say, slavery, and so on and so forth. A good number of things that are provided. Otherwise, nobody can just board a ship, when they have no jurisdiction, according to the zone. Our Coast Guard, quickly, the deep sea fishing, as we said, all the way to the EEZ, we have sovereign rights, not sovereignty, but sovereign rights. It means we have certain restricted rights, and particularly ownership of the resources, including the fish. So in the EEZ, all the way to 200 nautical miles, any fishing has to be authorized by us. So it is within the ambit of the Coast Guard or any authorized agency of that country to intervene, and even arrest these vessels, tow them into port, and then due processes of the law to be taken. And this is a big phenomenon when it comes to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. But there's another question that to finish with is the complaints that we've had from particularly the artisan fishermen, where they believe or they feel that the role of the Coast Guard has transformed or rather misinterpreted to be enforcing or rather arresting local fishermen for one reason or another. And they don't necessarily intervene when it comes to the international fishing fleets which are roaming around in our EEZ. I have attended such sessions where we've had very heartbreaking stories, where a fisherman goes out fishing, then the Coast Guard, I believe this is not a reflection of the Coast Guard service in its entirety, just some rogue elements within there, one of the few. They intervene, these artisan fishermen, they take a good number of kilos, allow them to proceed, then the maritime police meet them somewhere else, along the way as they're coming to the coast, they take something. Then before they land, they have KWS as well, taking something. And an old man once said in a meeting that I attended that they really feel that these agencies are working against them, as opposed to policing the seas, to stop the illegal, unreported and unregulated, fishing that is conducted by international fleets. The Asian countries, we don't want to name any for other reasons, but they are very well known. The usual names: wao ndio wako hapa, stealing our resources, yeah? But unfortunately our agencies, perhaps due to lack of resources as well to be able to engage the real problem, they resort to harassing artisan fishermen and so on. So before a fisherman comes, atapambana na Coast Guard 2 miles off, akisongea kidogo anapambana na Marine Police, akisongea akiland on the beach, on the BMUs, KWS is there, wanaenda wote. An old man once cried, akasema, there are days when he does not have anything to sell. He goes back with his nets back home. Wamechukua kila kitu. So that is a challenge, Daktari. But in brief, this is the jurisdiction we have as we go from the territorial waters, contiguous zone, EEZ. There's another zone beyond that before we hit the high seas. It's called the continental shelf. You have to claim this, yeah, with the UN. Huh? We have the Dualos in the United Nations, where we deposit our instruments, our claims for these spaces. This can go all the way to 350 miles off, or the natural elongation of the continental shelf, yeah? Whichever one is more. But we have to claim it, and we have to deposit some instruments towards that with the United Nations. What we have there is different from what we have in the EZ. In the EZ, remember, we have the water column, seabed, subsoil. In the continental shelf, we only have seabed, subsoil. The fish is not ours. Huh? But if we find oil and gas and whatever in the continental shelf, that zone extending beyond the EZ, that oil and gas, rare minerals and all that, is ours. Huh? So this is how, so if we claim that we have jurisdiction, our agencies can enforce. Thank you so much.
And as engineer is taking the question, the discussion is getting more interesting and more interesting. I see Wakili really wanting to engage in legal matters. We'll take one question from Wakili and one question from the cadets as we draw to the end of this wonderful discussion. And I hope with the permission of the VC, we'll be having more of this, if not even in the conference, but we'll also be having some sessions which are not really tied to a conference, but sessions which are, enlightening and educating. And since we did not have a lady asking a question, I feel obliged to give also one very short one. And as engineer answers the question, kindly prepare one cadet to ask the question and the question from Madam here and Wakili, and then we come to close. Engineer.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daktari, for the question. The issue you are raising is that on the ship side, we have a proper process. The waste is segregated, is properly processed, and then when it reaches the port, we don't know what happens to it, and we seem to be frustrated, which would be a really true concern, because if on the ship I would properly process the waste and then it reaches the port, I don't know where it goes, it might actually end up in the marine environment, which I'm trying to protect, which would be really useless work on my part. And therefore we try to have this cradle to grave approach to ensure that the whole process from the generation to the final processing, there's a way in which we have an approach so that we don't transfer the waste from the ship to other sides. And that's one of the reasons why the players, the people dealing with the ship, the ports that receive the ships, the environmental agency that authorizes the waste receivers, and the county government that receives the waste need to have a common understanding. And one way of having this is to have only authorized waste receiving facilities collecting this waste from the ships. This is one way in which we control it, so that whoever is authorized, the person who has authorized him has some control over what does he do with the waste after he has collected this from the ship. But I understand if there is no collaboration and cooperation between all these entities, it would be a frustrating work for you to properly process the waste on the ship, and then it ends up in a place where it is not, and it would not be a good approach. I hope I've answered it.
Thank you very much, Engineer. I will take the remaining questions all at once so that it can be answered all at once. I will start with Wakili here.
Thank you very much for the good presentation. The panelists have done well. Mine is just a follow-up question to what Dr. Nato has actually asked. And I'm much interested on the quality of adjudication of maritime disputes. This other one came from the angle of security. And my question will be to any of the panelists. We talked about the issue of multiplicity and duplicity of our regulations, statutory, regulatory, and policies regarding the issue of maritime. The question is, would actually this also have an effect on adjudication of maritime disputes, more specifically on the territorial jurisdiction, the disputes that are being decided within our territory? I'm saying this being cognizant to the fact that we still have a division at the High Court that is entertaining the disputes relating to maritime. What is your say about the quality of maritime disputes adjudication in this country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would also give the chance here to Madam to ask your question.
Thank you so much. I'm called Atwebembile Jenina. I'm from Barara University of Science and Technology. This is a university found in Uganda, Western region. I'm so happy and glad to have attended this conference. Actually, I felt the impact more, I think, more than any person, because I attended from day one up to now. I've not missed anything. So I take the opportunity to thank the organizers for bringing the important people closer to the services. I would imagine all this information you have gotten, you people from here, how much would you pay to get all that one? So I'm so happy to the VC and all the organizers for bringing services closer to your universities. I think we have gained a lot, and I will take a lot to Barara University. Maybe something small, as the VC was talking about the challenges they have when they are training their students, also have the same, but maybe how we have tried to solve it. Some of the time you find you have what it takes, you have collaborators, they come, but you don't have equipment at the ground. So we have collaborated with international universities. For example, in my department, I'm from biology department, I'm environmental microbiologist. We normally take our students to Germany. So when it is internship, we have the collaboration. Our students are taken there, they learn a lot of the skills, they come back with them. Maybe it can also be done for the cadets, for the equipment that are not here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I have just been reminded that we have guests who are actually recognized. And there is one question that is coming from them, especially that they are near the inland waters, and the issue of maritime affairs and blue economy is a pertinent issue that they are seeking also to look at it. And Daktari, welcome to this session.
Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Sum Susma from Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology in Western Kenya. We are so excited to have been and to be part of this wonderful conference. We are excited, and we've been here from Tuesday, and we are happy to be associated with TUM and its family. I have a few questions to ask, and I'm a medical practitioner, so please pardon me because my questions are from a layman's perspective. So the first question goes to the Vice Chancellor, whom I want to be like her in future. As institutions of higher learning, our responsibilities include academic progression. And I'm looking at these young ones and thinking about whether you have already developed the academic transitional programs like the master's program and the PhD programs so that they can transition. That is my first question. Then I think my colleague from Uganda has answered the question that have you considered exchange programs with other countries? When you give, they were giving the CV, Suleiman, Captain Suleiman studied from UK and other countries. Has TUM considered the exchange programs for the training? And lastly is the curriculum development. Is the curriculum Kenyan need-based or African need-based, or is it an international need-based? And lastly, sorry, Professor, Madam VC, for giving you so many questions. The last question is that Kenya has many universities in the land, and we are near the lake, but I'm thinking, how helpful can the other universities be to promote maritime training? My second question, if you may allow me, goes to Engineer. Engineer Samba, he spoke about decarbonization, and now that this week, this conference was about innovation, have you developed IT-enabled innovative solution to decarbonize or to manage sea waste? And I think the other question has been answered that I would have given to Suleiman about the overlapping debts and duplication of duties. What mitigation strategies have you put in place with regards to your key performance indicators under your strategic planning? Thank you.
Thank you very much for attending the conference and for those wonderful questions that you've asked. In terms of the question that has been asked by Dr. Modzogo, I would like Ms. Sabrina to give her view on that. And then after that, we'll have Engineer Samba, and lastly, we'll have Professor Laila, because hers is a bit of handful, so we save the best for the last. You may have the one.
Thank you so much for the question. In my view, maritime dispute resolution in Kenya is a complex challenge, and it demands a multifaceted approach. So as a coastal region with a significant maritime interest, Kenya grapples various interests when it comes to boundary disputes, to resource allocation, and environmental conservation. And therefore, to address these challenges effectively, I believe it's crucial to employ a combination of diplomatic negotiations, international legal mechanisms, and domestic legal reforms. Diplomatic negotiations do play a very good pivotal role in resolving maritime dispute resolutions, such as we have ITLOS and the ICJ. And by fostering the dialogue and cooperation among the neighboring countries and relevant stakeholders, we can work on a bilateral or a multilateral agreements that Kenya can work towards establishing clear boundaries and delineating exclusive maritime economic zones, So I believe that by leveraging diplomatic negotiations, international legal mechanisms, and domestic legal reforms, Kenya can navigate maritime dispute effectively, promote stability, security, and a sustainable development in its maritime domain.
Thank you very much for the question. The question was whether there are any innovative solutions that are being developed to manage the wastes coming from the sea. Yeah, I think there are innovative solutions, and most of these are used on an enforcement part. And so many of them have come on board to assist enforcers and regulators like ourselves to be able to monitor, for example, the ships and whatever pollutions are coming from them. It is possible to monitor, for example, oil pollution, and to be able to trace a pollution and discount it to a certain ship. These are solutions that are available and are being used at the moment. But it does not mean that they are matured. There are some, for example, for addressing decarbonization, which at the moment there's a lot of research and development and discussion going on what solution will we have, for example, to come up with alternative fuels, zero carbon fuels. And these are opportunities that training institutions like the Technical University of Mombasa can find and participate in, and to be one of the contributors to the energy transition for the maritime sector that we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer. Madam VC.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the question I was asked was, first of all, on the issue of progression of our students, whether we already have a plan for progression of our students. Yes, we do have progression of our students. As I said earlier, our programs, our marine engineering programs and nautical science program, for example, we start from craft, and then these students end up doing a diploma, and they can also move, then they do a degree in marine engineering. And after that, we are now coming up with a postgraduate program for the same, in the same areas. So yes, there's been progression, and you find that some of our students who are doing, for example, the degree course, they had first transited from a diploma course. Some had even transited way back from a craft training. So there is that pathway which we do recognize, and then we also recognize the prior learning. So when they move from one stage to the other, we do recognize what they had already learned, and they move in as a transition. They don't move in like the way we allow first years. So yes, there is that progression, and as I said, we also are having our postgraduate programs to be mounted soon for those cadets who have finished with their degree programs. On the issue of equipments, how we can take advantage of the exchange program. Yes, we do have exchange programs in, for example, currently with public health, our public health program, the Masters in Public Health, whereby the University of Sweden and TUM, we have students who spend half of the time, some of the time here, and then they also go to TUM, they go to Sweden to do some of the courses, and also the lecturers are spending some of the time here and some of the time the other side, and then there's also the exchange of the lecturers coming on this side. So that also helps in, especially with the human resource challenge that we are having, as I said. But in the area of marine and maritime courses, we've had collaborations. Like, for example, we are having a memorandum of understanding with Alexandria University in Egypt, but that has been helping only our our staff. It's for staff capacity, whereby our staff are able to go and do their masters and their PhD that side, and they are not even charged any fees because of that collaboration. But for our students to date, we are trying now to work on those kind of collaborations. Like DVC mentioned, an important aspect of our of the training, that is the sea-time training, because without sea-time training, they will not be able to get that certificate of competencies, as I have alluded earlier. So we are working with other organizations so that they can actually get that attachment for sea-time training, so that our students will be able to go for that sea-time training. In the case of equipment, we are not badly off, I may say. To me, the main challenge is the trainers themselves. And as Captain Suleiman said, the fact that how you recognize who will be able to train who, depending on the regulator at that particular, in that particular sphere. So it is actually the sea-time training and the attachment within the marine vessels and the ships that we really require those collaborations. And the government already had signed a collaboration with the Korea, for example, South Korea. So we want, when we were having a meeting with the CS, those are some of the things we were asking him that TUM needs also to benefit from such kinds of collaboration, so that we are assured of our students having that sea-time training as part of their training. They will definitely need that sea-time training. So I think I've answered that question. On the issue of the need-based training, whether it's local need or whether it is regional or whether it is international, I would want to say it is it is both. Because as you heard the president saying, he wants us to have up to 4,000 seafarers. So that's a local need. There's a need for 4,000 seafarers as we talk. So we will be, by training our cadets, we will be satisfying that need. But as we are doing that, remember, these cadets are supposed to work internationally, globally. So we will also be satisfying that, that market. If you listened to Captain Suleiman in his speech, he was saying, like now, when you are having a collaboration, for example, you have a ship which is already hiring people, and they are sourcing their people from maybe from Philippines, if I may say so, or from India. So they are getting their staff from India and so on. Now, if you want them now to start relocating and take our own cadets from Kenya, you need to have the numbers, because they need they will not move to come here and ask for maybe 10 or 20, and so they want numbers, so that in case of for their ships, they have that perpetual numbers that they will be able to sustain themselves. So I believe that it is not only local need, but it's also global need. So it will be able to satisfy, our training is to satisfy all those needs. And mark you, this training is supposed to be international. So we need to observe international standards. It doesn't matter whether it is local need or it is international need, the standards of quality have to be adhered to. I think I've answered all your questions. I don't know whether there was another question.
I think those were the questions, Madam VC. And as we draw to a close of the session, we'll start by Madam Sabrina. Ms. Sabrina, you are closing short for this particular session. And
I think the students, there's no question.
The students, there is one interesting question that I was leaving it to the end. When Captain Suleiman is giving his parting shot, he addresses that, and that is, because it has already risen, that is from the nautical science students. They are asking on the impact of international regulations on the career path of nautical science cadets. So that would be when you're giving your parting remarks. We start with Ms. Sabrina, then Ms. Josephine, then Chief Engineer Samba, then Captain Suleiman, and then we end with our host, Professor Laila, the parting shot in that order. And then I will hand over back to Director Quality, because she has something she has not answered, and I have not forgotten about it. And then she will then proceed to close the session. Ms. Sabrina?
Thank you. I think before the session started, everyone was told that I am currently doing my PhD in environmental law from University of Nairobi, and I'm focusing on the implications of the combined exclusive maritime zones of Africa. That is one of the goals for the AIMS 2050 strategy under the AU 2063. And in my research, I want to know what will be the regional, the implications of SEMSA happening in the Western Indian Ocean countries. I want to know how far we will be able to exercise our sovereignty, our jurisdiction after it happens, because they're combining the EEZs. So as I part here today, I would like all of you to, when you go home, to read about the Beyond Borders National Jurisdiction and the Genuine Link, Article 91 of UNCLOS. The reason I'm saying this is because the art of the Genuine Link and the BBNJ is very important. I am a big advocate for the Genuine Link being redeveloped, especially when it comes to the BBNJ. The reason I'm saying this is because under the Article 91 UNCLOS, it says that the art of genuine link is basically we need to just have a link between the state and the ship. But according to a case that was in UNCLOS called MV Saiga, it said that it does not have to have, the ship does not have to have a genuine link to the country, meaning the ship owner does not have to be from that country for the ship to be registered there. So now my biggest question is, when it comes to environmental maritime crimes that are there and we want to prosecute them, how far or how can we go about it when it comes to the matters of the genuine link, knowing that it does not support direct ship linkages and the BBNJ. Why I'm saying this is when the BBNJ is ratified and domesticated in Kenya, I think it's going to solve the genuine link problem. That's what I think. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like once again to express my gratitude to the organizers of the conference and the CEO of Technical University of Mombasa, Vice Chancellor. Mine is to just say something before I say my final words. Is on the overlapping mandates. I had been requested by the President to say something, and I'll take this opportunity at the end to say that the maritime sector is organized in such a way that the challenges we face here are not unique to us. For example, when you say that there are overlapping mandates in various institutions, for example, in maritime safety or protection of marine environment, you'll find that the IMO member states, all the 178 of them have faced those challenges. So there is a framework that has been developed to ensure that every member state is able to implement these challenges in terms of developing national strategies. I'll take the case study of Kenya, where we are supposed to implement to ensure the safety of navigation as well as marine pollution prevention. The Maritime Administration is not only Kenya Maritime Authority, it includes other ministries, departments, and agencies. For example, there is hydrography that is done by the Ministry of Lands. There is protection of the standards that is done by Kenya Bureau of Standards. There is the EPRA, that is our National Energy Regulatory Body, that looks at the quality of oil, and the KPA that looks at the aids to navigation. All these agencies collaborate and report to Kenya Maritime Authority, so for the purpose of reporting to the IMO. So while the mandates are different, they speak to the same language or the same objective, implementing of IMO instruments, and in terms of protection of marine environment or safety of navigation. So so when we speak also about the UNCLOS, the same applies. The mandates are usually, there's a way that member states are also able to know, this is where my jurisdiction reaches and this is where I start. In the event there is an issue to deal with diplomatically, again, that is taken up at that level, and the conflict of mandates or the conflict of laws, for those who have done law, there is a way that it is dealt with diplomatically beyond even the maritime administration. So to conclude, the conference has been really useful to me as well. I am a proponent of the blue economy. I've done published journals on the blue economy. I'm also a student, as Sabrina says, in the same university, maybe she's not aware, undertaking a PhD, but blue economy. So this is a very, very timely and relevant conference to all of us. What I would like to say as I conclude is that blue economy has a space for everyone. Kila mtu akona nafasi, kila mtu achukue nafasi yake. We enjoy the blue economy and we also ensure it is sustainable for our future generations. Thank you.
For me, I'd also wish to thank the organizers of this conference for the invitation and for all the arrangements. And I'd say that the advancement in technology, the changing in technology that we are experiencing in the maritime sector at the moment, we could find it to be a challenge, that there are things we have to change, there are ways in which you have to change the way we are doing things, but also it presents a great opportunity for all of us, considering that we are aspiring to be a blue economy and a maritime country, to join in the bandwagon and play our part in the new maritime future. And this really augurs well with the theme of this conference and Innovation Week. Thank you.
To touch on what the advocate had asked, when it comes to disputes and alternative dispute resolution, ADR, two ways of looking at it. One is commercial disputes, which are handled by our national courts. We have the Admiralty Court under the High Court of Mombasa. So whenever there are two parties involved in a commercial dispute, it is a preference, and I think it's a policy position that the judiciary encourages alternative dispute resolution for obvious reasons. It's less costly, it can avoid a win-lose situation as opposed to litigation, and therefore avoid lengthy, costly battles. So alternative dispute resolution on commercial disputes is handled by the Admiralty Court. This is normally under contract law, whether it's a contract between the ship owner and the charterer, or the carrier and the cargo owner, all other parties involved in the shipping venture. It's just a matter of the law of contracts. Secondly, it's territorial disputes. Now, these are they touch on sovereignty. You know, it touches on where your jurisdiction ends and where does mine begin. And so these are normally arbitrated by two courts, the International Court of Justice and in The Hague, and secondly, the International Tribunal for Law of the Sea in Hamburg, Germany. The advocate, if you're interested, they run a very good summer program, which I had, I'm an alumni under the International Law of the Sea Foundation in Hamburg. It's housed at the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. It happens once every year, takes about a month or so. That is where territorial disputes are handled. So you'll attend court sessions, you'll attend everything. You'll see how it's done. There are so many disputes. The Kenya-Somali is just one. There are so many. If you go from Bahrain to Singapore to all the islands of the world and so on and so forth, there are very many disputes. So this is the disparity between territorial disputes handled by international courts and commercial disputes handled by national courts. Sometimes commercial disputes, say it's a contract, and within the contract there's a clause, arbitration, you know, under English law, you know, to be undertaken, say, in London. So most commercial contracts, charter parties and all, they have that clause. Globally, most maritime contracts are drawn under English law. It's a preference that is globally understood. It's very, very efficient. And there is good experience all around the world. So there may be a commercial dispute, but there's a clause that says this arbitration under the London Maritime Arbitration Council, and so on and so forth, or a national court where the ship is. International relations, yes, they do affect employment at sea and recognition of certificates. Mutual recognition of certificates, as I suppose in the STCW, again, as engineer has said before, any nation is at liberty, to exercise the right to recognize any other nation's certificates or not. So some countries may fail to recognize. It does not mean that your training or training of that particular country, it does not conform to the STCW requirement. The country may be in the whitelist, but for purposes beyond other considerations, say commercial considerations, and even political consideration may lead or prevent a country from recognizing the certificates of others. For example, it took a while before the EU recognized certificates, say from, I'll give you a better example. Germany and the rest of the EU recognized Egyptian licenses for many years. And these are huge players in the maritime world, with a big tonnage. But Singapore refused, because to them, they are almost a competitor with Egypt. So when I got my first license in Alexandria and I was trying to go to PIL, we struggled a lot. We had linkages to senior management there, even the owner himself, through one of my mentors, Captain Hamisi. So we used to call the owner himself, in Singapore. And they were saying, unless we find a ship not registered here within the fleet, registered in another flag. So Singapore flagged PIL vessels we could not board. Again, I raised it with the Egyptian maritime authorities then. And shortly thereafter, it started a conversation, and those that came after me, the whole group went to PIL, But surprisingly, I went to European ships, but Singapore had taken a stand. So these are some of the considerations beyond. You can have, say, a Kenyan COC recognized by the UK and not recognized by a very tiny little country somewhere because they think Kenya is a competitor. As it is at the moment, the Tanzanians have an issue with our licenses, yeah? And I don't want to comment on the quality of what our neighbors are doing, for obvious reasons, yeah? It's comical. and that suffices. So, lastly, on the pragmatism, on the overlapping mandate, just to add on what my colleague has said, sometimes there are pragmatic measures taken. One of the mitigating approaches to answer Daktari is building consensus, because if several agencies have mandate provided by an act, then if consensus is not built on how to proceed, without necessarily getting into conflict, it can result into government agencies taking each other to court. And there are so many of those cases ongoing. PSC versus SRC, this one versus that one, there are so many. I think we have a presidential directive that government agencies will not be paying each other, because we are taking each other to court almost on a daily basis because of the overlapping mandates. So the maritime industry is not unique, like my colleague has said. So sometimes one of the strategies employed is consensus. Before you do anything and you think there is an overlapping mandate, you constitute a committee, you involve them, so that you build consensus on what is to be done. For example, and being pragmatic, KMA, for example, would want to lay stake on aids to navigation, but they are very, very expensive infrastructure to maintain. If I give you the figures, you'll be shocked. So yes, there is a small levy that KPA collects from the ships, but that does not, it amounts to a very small percentage of the operational costs. So they say, okay, if KMA wants, do you have the billions to maintain these ones? Take them, Then KMA says, oh, no, let's just be quiet on this mandate that I am also sharing with you, because you have the money to maintain. So pragmatism, sometimes between the agencies, sometimes it works as a way of dealing with this. Thank you so much. It's been a privilege and great pleasure to attend this conference. We look forward to our continued robust relationship. Asanteni sana. Thank you.
Mine is first of all to just appeal to all of us who are here today that the government has taken an initiative and the goodwill. We need to ride on the goodwill of the government, because as you've just seen that even in the MTP 4, which was launched just the other day, the priority has been given to blue economy and maritime affairs. And the main reason is that it will be the one which will catapult our country to the next level. The government now is relying on blue economy and maritime affairs for them to get the required GDP. And as I said earlier, when we are talking about global needs, we need that foreign exchange from the diaspora. And when our cadets or our mariners are in those industries, they will always be bringing back money to our country. So I believe that we have a lot to do so that we can be able to turn around our economy. And the place to be is in that maritime affairs and the blue economy. So we are in the right place. And as Technical University of Mombasa, our programs, as you've just heard, they are recognized, and we do not give programs, or we don't teach programs that are not accredited by the regulators. We've had a number of STCW courses, as you've just heard, and they are not only recognized locally, but even regionally, because it was just the other day when there was this training on port and the ship and port facility security, which was done at the Fumba port in Zanzibar. And it is TUM which was given that consultancy to go and do that training in Zanzibar. So we are really recognized, and we want to assure our stakeholders that we will give quality training to our products, and our products, when they go out there, they will be shining and they will be fit to perform what is required. But again, an appeal to our stakeholders. We have, I've just mentioned about the challenges, the issues of, like now, decommissioned, for example. We could do well with decommissioned equipments. For example, when I was talking about the issues of equipment, and then also for the equipments that we have, the people from Masinde Muliro, they were talking about involved in this, they want to be involved in this kind of training. We have the marine engine simulator here, which we can always share, because that's a very, very expensive equipment. About between 100 to 80 million for you to purchase it. So it is there for our use. We have the cloud simulation, which we, in fact, I remember Twalib, the people from Kisumu at one time, we were allowing them to use our cloud simulation and so on. So partnering is very, very important. What you don't have, and if we have, we can always partner and be able to achieve our mission and contribute to the goal of the government. Mine is just, again, to thank you all for finding time to be here. It has been a very, very exciting afternoon. I'm sure all of us have learned a lot during this session, and we are there tomorrow. For those of you who will be also available, the conference is still continuing tomorrow. Asanteni, and may God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Madam VC, for those comments. And I've actually received some messages online commending the session. And one of the requests that has been put by the stakeholders online is that we need to have more of these maritime talks, probably in the form of the TED talks. That is what has been proposed. And also, one of the cadets has also proposed something within the same line. We need to have this kind of talks in this format, so that there is continuous engagement with the industry and the potential candidates into that industry, the maritime industry. And I think, and I am quite enthusiastic that with your leadership and partnering with the MARITIME, we'll be able to hold such kind of talks at least once in a month with your leadership, and also switching over to the other side to my president. I think he'll be able to provide for us the necessary capacity to be able to hold these talks. So I hand over back to Professor Gishangi.
Thank you, Twarib. Thank you, panelists. My personal appreciation of the panelists, and on behalf of the division, thank you very much. This has been really exciting moment. Before I say anything, I would like Dr. Mutua from Quality Assurance and team to gift our panelists before they come down. So Dr. Mutua. Madam VC, kindly gift our panelists. I will start with Captain Suleiman. I think the paparazzis, you are there. Thank you very much. We shall also gift Captain Ari Abdile in absentia. So Captain Suleiman, please pick the gift for Captain Abdile. the Harbour Master. Thank you very much, and I will not follow the order of seniority. So I shall have Madame Sabrina Jefwa being gifted. Then I shall have Josephine. And then we shall have Chief Engineer Luke Samba. So thank you very much, panelists. Once you have been gifted, you can. Thank you very much. You can take your seats on this other side. So members, I see that we still have energies to continue, but because we have other engagements, we'll stop here. Mine is very simple. It's to appreciate all of you. The Vice Chancellor has already appreciated you. But I would like to, again, the meeting is not ending today, it's tomorrow. But I would like to appreciate the fact that we have our colleague from Barara University. Of course, I know that university because we have staff who have come from those areas in the university here. There's our colleagues from Masinde Muliro, our students from UNISA, from South Africa, colleagues who submitted the abstract from Nigeria. I would like to really appreciate the foreign partners, but if I have not mentioned you in person, please do appreciate our appreciation. Absa Bank, which has contributed to this activity, National Bank of Kenya, Swahili Port, Softcore, Web3, ICP Hub Kenya. And finally, to appreciate all of you for being here. Without you, I'm sure we would have been talking to ourselves. And that would not have been a very nice thing for our panelists. To appreciate all of you, to appreciate our faculty members for being here, and to appreciate for our students for being patient. I was taking notes. I did not see you taking notes. But I think you have become in that profession, and I'm a novice, like I said earlier. But to truly appreciate all the team which has made this particular session very successful. With that, I would like to invite the two cadets to close for us with a closing prayer. The two cadets who started for us.
Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amin. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا آتق رقابنا من النار. ربنا آتق رقابنا من النار. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Let's believe and pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this moment. We thank you that you've been with us since the beginning of this event until we come to the end of the event. All the glory and honor is back unto you. Even as we depart, God, may you be with us and precious access. Be there for us, even for what has been planned in this discussion, Almighty Father. May you open financial breakthrough for everything to come to a success. In Jesus' name we pray, just in believing. Amen.
Thank you very much. You have come to the end, and we may take leave at our own pressure. Thank you.